You're listening to Consulting Logistics, presented by Aborn Company. I'm your host, Tim Dooner. Thank you for joining us today. We're talking to the future of supply chain as we have a brand new guest on this SCU30 Supply Chain Under 30 episode. On our SCU30 episodes, we talk to students, entrepreneurs, and other members of the supply chain community who are at or near the beginning of their career, and we touch on their journey so far. Millennials and now Gen Z, making a difference. Speaking of that, I was at MIT's amazing Supply Chain Research Expo in lovely Cambridge, Massachusetts, right on their campus just last week. If you're not familiar, MIT's supply chain program works with a group of sponsors, some shippers, carriers, service providers who are assigned a team of students, and together they work on solving issues in the supply chain by using what they've learned so far in MIT's undergrad and graduate supply chain programs. Get this, what's really neat though is that they have each team in front of their own display station that shows the problem and their solution. You can talk to them about how they approach this problem. And that's really the cool part for me. I got to introduce myself to quite a few people and see what fresh eyes and alternate perspectives bring to the supply chain, because fresh eyes and alternate perspectives don't divide healthy organizations, they enhance them. And you can see that in a number of ways that some of these teams tackled their problem. Guys, it's free, it's awesome, and it's like a big kid science fair. The attendees are all given a vote too, and you can determine the winner, so you actually have some influence over the competition. If you have an interest not just in emerging tech, but in the actual people who will be building, administering, and crafting the future of supply chain, well, it's a can't-miss event. Open up your calendar on your smartphone and drop a reminder in early January of 2020 to register for Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Supply Chain Research Expo 2020. It's a great time if you have an interest in this side of it. And if you're listening to an SCU30 episode, I imagine you do. We don't have to wait until next January. And that's because the future of supply chain is dialing in right now. Our next guest is Daniel Knauer, calling in out of Chicago, Illinois, Windy City. Dan has a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, Marketing, and Supply Chain from East Carolina University. He's worked as an account executive for Total Quality Logistics, a tour guide for a cycle party, and now he's a regional sales manager handling cargo solutions for Emerson Commercial and Residential Solutions. And thank you to them for lending you to us today. Dan, welcome to the show.
Tim, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So Dan, before we get into your background and everything, I just mentioned Emerson Commercial and Residential Solutions. You work for them right now. What are you doing? What's Emerson and what's the job you're in today?
That's correct. So I work for Emerson Commercial and Residential Solutions. It's a subsector of Emerson. But broken down a little bit more, I work for the Cargo Solutions division of that. I know it's a lot of words, but what we do at Cargo Solutions is we provide temperature, location, door security, humidity, and or CO2 monitoring for in-transit cargo. And then we also offer facility monitors for temperature and humidity for warehouses that are temperature controlled.
I was going to say, because when you go on Emerson's website, the first thing you see is they're sort of a commercial and HVAC company, right?
Exactly. So if you wanted to learn more about us, it would be at emerson.com/cargo. That's where you'd find everything about the business unit that I work in. Emerson overall supplies a large variety of different products and solutions to our customers, anything from HVAC to rigid tools to InSinkErator. Emerson is the manufacturer of those products as well.
Now, you mentioned temperature control. So obviously in warehouses, especially cold chain solution warehouses, big deal what the temperature is in there. A lot of controls go into the warehouse space. Do you guys also deal with like reefer trucks, for example?
In terms of making the refrigeration units for trucks?
Yeah.
So I really don't know too much about that aspect of Emerson. The main part of Emerson that I work with is the Cargo Solutions division. And if we ever get any refrigeration requests, we usually push that to the other business units that are handled by Emerson.
You mentioned another interesting thing, and we talk about it extensively here, which is bringing IoT into the supply chain and getting these data points. And one of them that we've mentioned quite a few times is temperature. So I was wondering, do your cargo solutions integrate at all with a warehouse management or an inventory system, or where is that data stored?
So all the data is stored in the cloud for most of the solutions that we offer. Most of the solutions that we offer are integratable with TMS and WMD softwares as well. So you'd be more than able to use our products and have them all integrated into the platform that you currently use. You can type in load information to your TMS software, have that pushed to our web-based cloud platform where the information will be auto-populated. And then information from our web-based cloud platform can push back to your TMS software, letting you know in real time what the temperature is of your trucks, as well as what the location is of that truck at that period of time.
How did you get into this line of work?
I kind of fell into it. When I first went into college, I knew I wanted to be in business. I didn't really have a strong passion for science or history or any of those other concentrations. So when I went to college and went into business, it was kind of a process of elimination. I didn't want to do accounting or finance. It was too much math. Marketing interested me, and that's why it was one of my sub-concentrations. But supply chain management really came off the paper because when I first went to college, I went to Penn State. And Penn State at the time was number 3 in supply chain management in the country at Schmiel College of Business. After I left Penn State for my first year, I went to East Carolina just because my parents had moved down to North Carolina and it was a lot more cost effective to go to an in-state school than an out-of-state school. I stuck with the supply chain management major because I found some interest in it from Penn State and figured I'd continue to pursue it.
What does a curriculum in supply chain management look like? It's sort of a newer, more emerging field that you're seeing in academia. What did your curriculum look like? What were you learning?
So I was learning the ins and outs of usually over-the-road transport. Some of my professors had come from the brokerage background and they discussed things that would coincide with your standard day-to-day of a freight broker. Some of them came from the warehouse management side, though, and they talk about the day-to-day of the other side. What would go into routing trucks, what would go into managing that, making sure that the warehouse was fully stocked, not too much stocked. It was a lot of newer developments in what we were learning about because it was such a new major. East Carolina had came out with the major just years before I had started it. So very interesting things.
Is what you studied in school as part of this program, has it been applicable to what you've been doing on the job? Or is it like with some schools, like you study X degree, but you don't really use that stuff later on in life. The degree's nice to have on the wall, though.
So I'm lucky to say that what I learned in college completely coincides with what I do today.
Phew.
Everything that I learned in college was supply chain management. And everyone I talk to, whether it's face-to-face with my clients in Chicago or in the Midwest or over the phone with some of my other clients, has to do with their day-to-day pain points, with what's going on with their trucks, what's going on with their shipment temperature. And that completely relays back with what I learned every day at East Carolina.
Interesting. So out of East Carolina, before you ended up with Emerson, you had 2 interesting jobs that I saw there, which one was with TQL, Total Quality Logistics, and the other one, which I'm even more curious about, was a bike tour guide. Is that so? What did a bike tour guide entail? What was that?
Being a bike tour guide was like herding cats. I moved from Miami to West Palm and was looking for a side job to do on the weekends. And Cycle Party had come up because I actually was one of the riders on the tour. We would go from bar to bar and I would drop them off at certain locations where they'd get drinks and explore a new city.
Raise your hand if you like tequila.
So Cycle Party was in West Palm, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami, and had a great time doing that job. And I did it up until the point that I moved from West Palm Beach to Chicago.
What kind of bike are we talking about here that you're pulling numerous people to and from a bar in? What does it look like?
It's kind of hard to explain. It's basically seats that look horizontal. So you're not facing ahead, but you're facing the side of the road and you're facing the other people in the group. And I would sit in the middle of everybody steering, and they would all have pedals under their seat, which would power the actual bike. So we'd go from bar to bar based on them powering the bike, and I would be the one steering it. We'd also do sightseeing tours of the city. So anybody that was new to West Palm Beach, I would bring them around to certain artwork or certain cool locations in West Palm just so they can get a lay for the land.
Wow. Eat your heart out, Elon Musk. You know, this isn't battery powered. This is Daniel Knauer powered bicycling.
Exactly. It was definitely a good time doing that job. I had a lot of great times on the bike.
And thankfully not through the streets of Chicago. It was through, Fort Lauderdale, you said?
Yeah, so they have availability in Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and West Palm Beach. So definitely a fun time if you're ever visiting any of those cities.
Wow. So how long have you been out of school? So you did that and you're with TQL. Was that right when you graduated out of university? How did that go?
So I graduated college in May of 2016.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I got the offer from Total Quality Logistics while I was still attending East Carolina University and moved from Greenville, North Carolina to Miami, Florida. The Miami branch was a brand new branch. I wanted to get into something from the ground up and start with a big company, but a small office. And they said that Miami was the newest office they had. So I said, send me to Miami. So that's what I ended up doing.
Now you're in Chicago, right? Do you have family from that area? Because you were like, you're at Penn State, right? And then you're down in Florida, and now you're hitting every point on the country. So what led you to Chicago and to Emerson?
So after I left Total Quality, there was an opportunity in West Palm Beach to work at Emerson. It was an exciting opportunity for me because it geared both my professional experience at Total Quality and my educational experience at East Carolina perfectly. It was everything in terms of freight management, but it wasn't freight brokerage. I wanted to get out of freight brokerage and go into something more niche like what Emerson was offering.
Did that differ from really like any preconceived notions you had before starting over there? Or what have you learned to do and to not do now that you've joined, working in the supply chain and being a working professional within this industry?
So when I was working at Total Quality as a broker, I'd see some of the day-to-day struggles that some of my customers had with keeping track of their freight and having location-based solutions to be able to find out where that freight was. And when I was at Total Quality, the majority of the things that I did was dry. It was usually flatbed loads. But moving to Emerson, I got to experience a lot more of what temperature-controlled logistics look like and really got to dive into that. It was a major interest of mine. I wanted the opportunity to really pursue that. And that's what Emerson allowed me to do.
So who are you selling to? Who's your customer? What kind of solutions are you providing right now in this role? Like, what kind of challenges do you face?
We supply to anybody that's looking for the following solutions. If you want to know where your truck is in real time so that you would know if it's showing up on time or late, or if that truck has broken down and not moved from a set location for a certain period of time. Anyone that needs to know the location of their trucks, we're there to assist. Anyone that also wants to know what the temperature of those trucks are. So temperature was the bread and butter of our business, and it still is, and we're expanding into different solutions like humidity and CO2. But for temperature, we offer both logger solutions and tracker solutions. And what I mean by that, a temperature logger is something that will record the temperature in the back of the truck. And then once it hits the end location, the customer will be able to read the temperature graph and know whether or not to accept or reject that load based on the temperature that they see on the graph. And then we offer trackers for the real-time solution for people that want to know exactly what the temperature is in the back of their truck in real time while it's in transit. So for temperature, we offer both those solutions. We offer security solutions as well. We offer a product that goes as a replacement for the seal in the back of your truck that will alert you if the seal has been broken. And we also offer security solutions in terms of light sensitivity. When the back door of a trailer is shut, it's assumed that the inside of that trailer is dark. So if for any reason the back door of the trailer is open, on the bottom of our unit, we have a light sensor that will send you an email or text message letting you know if light has been detected in that unit. And then in coincidence to that, we do offer humidity solutions to let you know the relative humidity in the back of your trailer, both in a logger and real-time model, and CO2 solutions for gas trailers as well.
Wow, there's some interesting solutions and needed ones. I used to work dealing with reefer shipments. I was doing reefer air perishable fish shipments, and the two keys there were time and temperature. And then, this was like 2011, but nothing that was digitized, right? Nothing that could present them with a graph or that kind of thing, which seems sort of vitally important, especially if you're dealing with something with easy spoilage like, fish or poultry.
It's really key in supply chain nowadays to have things like this.
Do you see a lot of clients that are open to adopting these newer solutions, or are a lot of them using sort of these old-fashioned techniques where you're just giving them like a specific dry ice temperature you need a box to be? How sophisticated are, the people you encounter insofar as what they're doing with refrigerated tracking on their shipments?
So this is a product, or the products that we offer for real-time and both logger solutions are products that they're very helpful in the supply chain industry. Having a product that you can know goes in the back of your truck and goes inside of your shipment, and you can guarantee that that's the correct temperature, can make or break a claim in terms of it arriving at a temp or in temp. The people that we work with and the people that are interested in our products are usually very interested, because if someone reaches out to us, it's usually because they have a headache. They have something that has happened with their shipment and they want to find a solution for what has happened. And we're here to help them out with that.
So I have a question for you. I go on LinkedIn quite a bit, and one of the comments I hear from certain demographics that seem to have an axe to grind with millennials, and they're always saying, millennials switch to jobs too frequently. I personally think that's a bit of an unfair assessment, as you need to figure out, where you want to go in life and what you want to do, and school doesn't always prepare you exactly for what the best company will be. But let me ask you, true or false, do you think you and your peers switch jobs too frequently?
I think it's both true and false. I think if a millennial is in a job that they feel they're not getting paid enough and they don't see the opportunity for upward growth, then they're more than welcome to pursue other opportunities. But if you're in a job that you're getting paid fairly and there is the potential for upward opportunities within that company, I don't see any reason to leave. So it's all dependent on the individual situation.
Yeah, so you're just saying don't make, lateral moves, right? Or even parallel moves if it makes sense and a company's invested in you and they decide to either stop investing in you or creating those avenues in your career for you, then maybe that's a time to go look elsewhere. But also you should take those, those relationships you've invested internally with the people you've met and worked for who know how you operate and try to leverage those too if those opportunities exist, right?
Exactly. There's something to be said about consistency. If you stay with one company for a certain period of time and learn the ins and outs of what's going on with that, there is the higher potential of upward growth with that company. But like I mentioned earlier, if that company does not offer upward growth and does not offer you a clear path of being able to get to where you want to be, then by all means, look for something that's better for you.
Here's one for you. And I like this question because no one's ever going to answer that they wanted to work in supply chain, because a lot of us, even you who is studying it in school, kind of falls into this field a bit, or at least falls into the focus that they're doing. I'm not immune to that, and most of the people that I work with haven't been either. So for you, I'm going to ask, though, when you were like 10, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I kind of flip-flop back and forth as a kid for what I wanted to be. When I was younger, I wanted to be a zookeeper, but then I found out that was a dirty job and ended up getting my head out of that. I wanted to be a doctor for a little while. It never really pushed the plug, and I want to be in supply chain management and a supply chain professional until I got to college. So I did really fall into it. You hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah. Did you learn about the dirty job of being a zookeeper from the show Dirty Jobs?
I don't know if they had an episode with that, but I wanted to be a zookeeper because I loved animals. And I went to a zoo and saw them cleaning up the exhibits. And everything with that and decided it wasn't for me.
Yeah. Well, now you're out of school. You said you graduated in 2016. So you've been out in the wild for 3 years now. You've been out of your cage for almost 3 years and a few months. In your experience so far, the things that you've been through, do you like where you're at now? Where do you want to grow? Where do you see the trajectory taking you? Because again, you're still in these early stages. The sky's the limit for you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm extremely happy with where I'm at right now. I recently received a promotion at Emerson to move from West Palm Beach to Chicago to actually be out in the field and see what the Chicago cold chain customer base is really looking for. I get to go out to warehouses and see what people's pain points are every day. And that's everything that I wanted, to be able to interact with people on a face-to-face level and also help them out with some of the problems that they have working day to day. So where I see myself going, that's up in the air. There's a lot of different potentials for me to do that. And I know wholeheartedly that Emerson is here to work with me and here to open up those opportunities.
Yeah, and you know what? No matter what happens, Chicago is a gigantic space for logistics. So you put yourself in one of the hubs of the country in terms of the movement of freight and the demands of freight in a market that is only going to continue to grow throughout the years.
It really is. And that's why I decided to move to Chicago. I had the option to move to a couple different cities, but Chicago is just where the opportunity is. I would say it's the intermodal capital of the U.S. Most train shipments connect in Chicago and then reconnect to go to different places. The cold storage facilities in Chicago, there's countless cold storage facilities in Chicago, and the market's just ever growing. So I couldn't be happier with where I'm placed.
So since you were sort of in this unique position where you got this job with Emerson and then they relocated you, what would you tell my listeners who are in a similar position or who may have that come up? What to be mindful of during like a relocation like that? What should they consider?
To be open to change. Moving from one place to another, especially when you're young, it's the time to do it. You have every ability to go out there and explore a new city, explore a new place, and learn the culture of that city. And it will expand your career as well. You can learn new things from people that are in the area that you wouldn't have known by just staying in one place.
Yeah, all too true. Like when I was in my 20s, I remember I would be in, a new apartment every 9 months to every year. You can move around. Now, in my late 30s, I'm married and I have kids. And all of a sudden you find yourself in these positions where there's just a lot of stakes in the ground and it becomes so much harder to just pick up, pick up your mat and go sell your wares somewhere else or to go do something somewhere else. So that mobility that you have at such a young age should really be valued. And I think that's a great point that people who are considering other alternatives or other positions really should be mindful of. Not to just look, within your own zip code or at the nearest city, but look at areas, if you're interested in the field, where there's a lot of growth.
Exactly. And that was the mindset that I had moving to Chicago. I felt the growth opportunities in here were exponential, and I was excited to get my feet on the ground and fully see what this city can bring.
What about cost of living between Chicago and Palm Beach? Was that a bit of a sticker shock? Is Chicago expensive? I imagine it's got to be kind of up there.
Chicago is pretty expensive, but so is Palm Beach. Any major city that you move to is going to have that cost of living increase, especially if you move from a suburban area. But with the cost of living increase does come the opportunity for growth and the opportunity to expand your career. So it's all about weighing the pros and cons to moving to a more expensive city based on what you expect to gain from your career based on moving.
What's got you excited for this year? What's on the horizon? What's cool? What's happening? Either, professionally in your personal side or with your company. What's getting you into the office in the morning?
Well, Tim, I'm excited to travel. I had not been to Chicago before I moved up here. I got off the plane, dropped my bags off at my apartment, and it was the first time I ever stepped foot in Chicago. So I hadn't been to Illinois. I hadn't been to the Midwest. And this year I'm excited to see what the Midwest has to offer. There's a lot of interesting places in Chicago and the surrounding area that I've never seen before that I'm really looking to dive into.
Have you got your Mitch Trubisky shirt yet?
I have not. I'm actually a Browns fan from day one. Yeah, I know. Well, I'm expecting them to go playoff bound in the next couple of years. So give it time. It's been a long time coming, but I feel that that Baker Mayfield was the right choice this year for the draft, and we'll see where it brings us.
Yeah, I just read an article in ESPN by Seth Wickersham, which is sort of about the turmoil that was going on in their front office with the Haslams and with Hugh Jackson and everything that went down there. But it seems like Mayfield, even with all that stuff going on in the background, he finally said, "You know what, Browns, you're not going to ruin me because I'm just too good."
Well, that's what it was. I mean, if we're looking at the draft, Saquon Barkley was probably the most talented player in that draft, but that's not what the Browns needed. The Browns needed a culture-changing player, and that's what Baker Mayfield brought.
Yeah, it was a really interesting article, too, just from the perspective of management and leadership, and you can kind of see what happens in, not just a football organization, but any company that's poorly ran and doesn't give their people the right opportunities. For you, it sounds like Emerson has given you some great opportunities and the kind of things that people under 30 really look for and value, which is you want to go out in the field right now. You want to build out your career and you want to understand what the stuff you're doing on a computer and the pictures and the data you're looking at actually represents and really is in a tangible and physical way, right?
Couldn't have said it better myself. Emerson has really given me the opportunity to go out there and prove myself and also help the surrounding people in the Midwest with some of the pain points that they have with supply chain.
Well, Dan, you sound like a great guy with a great head on your shoulders. How can my listeners, if they want to learn more about you or learn more about Emerson, how can they get in touch with you guys?
So if they want to reach out to Emerson, go to emerson.com/cargo. And it will bring you to our head office line and also give you all of the information on the current product offerings that we have. If you want to get in contact with me, if you're ever interested in learning more about relocating or just want to talk, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I can be found at Daniel Knauer, Knauer.
Daniel Knauer. Find him on LinkedIn. It's the best place to meet people if you're in business anyway.
Exactly.
If you're not developing your LinkedIn, you're doing something wrong. It's so easy, right? We connected. You just left one comment. I was asking for something, and then that's how connections and conversations start.
Really is.
Well, thanks again, Dan. I look forward to what you're up to next, and hopefully I have you on an episode in a couple of years. Leaders of the HVAC temperature control space. It's going to be a big one, especially with IoT connectivity coming along. People are really starting to get a lot more mindful of this. They're getting way more aware of the power of data, and it's going all the way up to the top. So I think that you have a very bright future ahead of yourself.
Thanks, Tim, and I'd be happy to come back on the show whenever the invite's there.
This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey from Let's Talk Supply Chain, and you are listening to Consulting Logistics.
Now hiring. Excellent positions are available right now to work with an industry leader crafting cutting-edge, modern managed freight solutions. Look, guys, nobody can move the world alone. It takes creativity, curiosity, and collaboration between great people. Join Aborn Company's Boston area team and be a part of their vision to rethink how shippers and carriers look at their global supply chain. They offer 30 years of traditional industry experience in a free-thinking, tech-friendly, startup environment that doesn't just encourage their clients' growth, but also the growth of their most important asset, their team. Choose to be extraordinary. Choose to be the architect of your career. Just visit abornco.com, click on the Careers tab, and choose your own adventure today. We can't wait to work with you. Looking to modernize, digitize, and future-proof your supply chain? Visit day1.io for a free Day 1 Data Optimization Report. That's day, 0, 1.io. Isn't it time you got optimized? Announcing on October 10th, 2019, Aborn Co. presents TransTech 2020, a supply chain vision and innovation conference. This event is the first of its kind in Boston. Join our panel of speakers from the worlds of logistics and technology as we discuss the modern needs of the supply chain and the merger between the physical and digital footprint that freight creates. Head on over to transtech2020.com for more details. We'll be talking about AI, automation, autonomous vehicles, blockchain, data purity and capture, future-proofing the supply chain, market conditions, transportation management systems, and so much more. Head on over to transtech2020.com for registrant and sponsor details. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, feel free to email me at tdooner@abornandco.com. That's TDOONER at abornandco.com. I'd be happy to learn something new with you. For this episode and all of our previous shows, visit consultinglogistics.io or simply search for Consulting Logistics on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player of choice. And hey, if you like the show, the best way you can give back is to share it. And if you really liked it, go on iTunes over there and rate and review. Be much appreciated. That's it. We're out of time. For Daniel Knauer, I'm Tim Dooner saying, take care and happy shipping. And a little known fact, Chicago called the Windy City, but Boston, it's windier. You gotta look it up. It's true. I don't try to flex either on the wind between the two cities, but Chicago got that name from the musicians, right? Dan probably knows that. He's a Chicago.
Okay, yes.